Or to the cloud. Okay, welcome to Let's Talk Purim Week 2. I know someone last week asked me about why we wear costumes on Purim, and we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into that, but and more. And yes, I cut my finger while cooking. It's very minor, so if that's distracting, it's okay. It's a Scooby-Doo Band-Aid. So there you go. So that's what you see on my finger. I'm okay. Someone asked me about it on Zoom earlier, so I didn't want that to be distracting. Anyway, so we're going to go into this idea of hidden and revealed, and there are lots of different themes. And I actually worked on this source sheet with my partners, so it might feel a little different, which is also fun. So we'll keep it, keep it different. So, okay, here we go. So I'm going to share my screen. And as I always say, feel free to interrupt me. If you have something, sorry, yeah? What?
I printed?
You can print it if you want. Go for it. So feel free to interrupt me if you have questions or thoughts. If you want to write something in the chat, you can do that as well. I try and monitor the chat, and I will read it out loud for people. If you feel like you are not great at monitoring the chat, don't worry about it. I'll make sure to kind of bring the chat into our discussion as well. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen as usual. Okay, here we go. Here we are. Okay. What is Esther hiding? Dun, dun, dun. Okay, cool. So again, we're going to look at kind of this idea of the hidden and the revealed. And just want to make it so I can see all of you. Great. Okay, would someone like to, so their first text, it's very short, but would someone like to read it in the English for us? This is from...
Can you do the reading?
Yeah, do you have it printed out, Alan?
Yes, I did.
Okay, great. So can you read it in the English, the Talmud, Chulin?
Tractate Chulin?
Yeah.
From where in the Torah do I know Esther? And I will certainly hide Esther, Astir, my face on that day.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so the rabbis here are asking, okay, where in the Torah is the word Esther? So if you look in the Hebrew, it says, right, Esther, min haTorah meinayin. Like where do we find an allusion to Esther in the Torah in the first 5 books? And they bring up this verse from Deuteronomy, right? And I'm going to read it in the Hebrew because it's helpful to see like the sound. So right, Va'anochi Hester Astir. So right, it's like you can hear the word Esther, like Hester Astir. There's that similar sound. So they're saying, okay, like we get this name. Esther is kind of alluded to. She's like hidden in the Torah in a way, in this verse from Deuteronomy. So there we go. So that's kind of fun, right? And again, it's like interesting that Esther, the rabbis here are already kind of connecting Esther to something that is hidden by kind of this wordplay. Okay, and so here we have the verse in Deuteronomy, which, right, so it says, "And surely I will hide my face in that day for all the evil which they shall have wrought, in that they are turned unto other gods." Great, so we don't have to go into that. But Alan, would you like to read the Rashi for us?
Yes, sir. During the time of Esther, there will be a hiding of the face of God, and this will be a time of great troubles and evil.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so what's Rashi saying here? Anyone? What's Rashi alluding to?
He's alluding to what happened in Babylon when Ahasuerus was the king, and that she hid that she was Jewish. And
yeah, thank you, Ruth. Exactly. So right, there's this idea that God, when bad things happen, it means God is hiding. And so, right, there are a lot of negative things happening to the Jews, right, with this Purim story. And the idea that God was hidden during that time. Exactly. And right, and this also is alluded to. We'll see a text about this a little bit later, but also this idea that God, right, God's name is not mentioned at all in the book of Esther, which is always kind of, I don't know. I know when I first learned that, I was surprised, right? There's no God in this book, or like there might be God, but God is not explicitly named. So we'll look at that in a little bit. But right, there's this idea of hiddenness. So right, both Esther is going to be hiding something, but maybe God is hidden, and there's a lot of kind of hiding here. Cool. Okay, so here we have a little kind of just refresher of the part where Esther is kind of hiding and revealing herself. So as we are on this theme of hidden and revealed, we'll look at our heroine Esther. Would someone else like to read? Just go through this.
Very well. Esther 2:10. Esther did not reveal her people or her kindred, for Mordecai had told her not to reveal it. Should I go on?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Esther 4:13-14. Mordecai had this message delivered to Esther. Do not imagine that you of all the Jews will escape with your life by being in the king's palace. On the contrary, if you keep silent in this crisis, relief and deliverance will come to the Jews from another quarter, while you and your father's house will perish. Who knows, perhaps you have attained to royal position for just such a crisis.
Thank you. So I'm going to interrupt you before the last one, sorry, because I just want to fill in. I realize I should fill in the gaps, right? So the first one, right, Esther's just gotten married to the king, and she keeps it, King Ahasuerus, she keeps it a secret that she's a Jew, right? And then what happens between part A and part B here is that, right, Haman's decided he wants to kill all the Jews, and the edict has been issued that that's going to happen in Adar. And Mordecai hears this, and he's urging Esther that she has to speak up. And he says, like, you're not going to be saved, right? Like, this is going to affect you too. And I know it's scary, but you need to have the courage to speak out and to reveal who you are, reveal this thing that has been kept hidden. Okay, great. And then this third piece, which Lorraine, I'm going to have you read in a second, is Esther is at her banquet number 2 with Ahasuerus and Haman. And this is her moment where she kind of comes forward and reveals this piece of herself.
Okay. Esther 7:4-6. For we have been sold, my people and I, to be destroyed, massacred, and exterminated. Had only we been sold as bondsmen and women, I would have kept silent, for the adversary is not worth of the king's trouble. Thereupon King Ahasuerus asked Esther, who is he and where is he who dared to do this? The adversary and enemy, replied Esther, is this evil Haman. And Haman cringed in terror before the king and the queen.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so she finally is out with it, and here, this is kind of one of the arcs of the hidden and the revealed, right? That she's kind of kept it hidden, and then at this right moment, she reveals it. Also, kind of fun thing to note is this line in the Hebrew. So the rabbis kind of, a lot of the rabbis can't imagine, like, how could God not be in this book, right? How could God's name not be in this book? It's definitely in this book. And they find certain places where God's name is hidden. And one of these lines is a place where they point to where it's hidden. And I know this especially because Megillah chapter 7 is one of the ones I've read before, so I had to memorize it. But here, this quote, in the Hebrew, it's, if I remember correctly, it's like mi hu zev ve'ezehu. And you can kind of, like if you take the beginning of certain of those letters, so like me, the yud, who, like it makes out kind of yud, like you end up spelling out God's name in like a very creative way. But they're like, oh, we found it, like God's name is there in this moment. So there you go. So yeah. Any kind of thoughts or comments on this piece before we move on? Is anything like striking you differently this year? Or? Everyone's very quiet tonight. Or maybe I'm just not asking good questions. I don't know.
I feel like the idea of like standing up for like your people and not being silent, I guess, rings true at a moment. Of course, when we're hearing about like a lot of anti-Semitism, it feels very relevant to current times.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Right. That idea of speaking out and feeling like, right, especially when we're like, oh, like this doesn't affect me, but actually realizing that it does. Thank you, Stephen Kraft, for correcting me. Okay, it's in chapter 5, verse 4. I think we have a few. But yeah, right, this idea of remembering that we are all connected, and even if we are in a comfortable position, Esther's literally the queen, like that's like the most comfortable position to be in, that yeah, we still have kind of this
Not really.
Also
If
be,
you look at Vashti, I mean,
mm,
she got thrown out, so being queen didn't mean anything to Ahasuerus.
yeah, that's true. That's a good point, right? So like maybe, well, I think it almost makes my point in a way, because it shows that you would think that being a queen would make you like super safe and comfortable, but actually it's not. Even being number 2, right? It doesn't take away kind of the danger and the risk.
I also, oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay, you hear me? Okay. I also think like at first Esther, she was hesitant to do anything because she kept fighting Mordecai, saying, you know, I can't say anything. He has to call me first. Otherwise, if you go to the king without him summoning you, you can be killed. And Mordecai said, well, you have to go in so many words. And then this revelation came to her and she said, well, if I die, like, this is the reason why maybe I was put on earth, is to save the Jewish people. And I think that came to her. And that's a very important point, is that sometimes we don't know what God's purposes are. And she was put into the palace, maybe specifically without our knowing it, but God had a plan, because God knows what's going to be. The same way, and I just saw Stephen Kraft's name there. I was watching. I took his lectures and all that about new numerology, and how the, you know, what was said before. It's all out there. We just don't know it. And I think Esther realized, you know, I have to do it, and that's it.
Yeah.
I went a step back. Why Mordecai in the first place said, "Don't let the king know you're Jewish."
Yeah, it is interesting. He's like, don't tell. And then he's like, no, you have to tell.
No, I'm thinking, well, you know what? There's so many. First of all, King Ahasuerus, if we learned, like we know his history, he was a very unstable man. I mean, he mentally unstable too. He had parties. He went with the flow type of thing, right? So one day they said, oh, these people, like they did, who are different than us, why don't we get rid of them? Like in every generation, you always find someone. Why don't we? He said, sure, go ahead, you know. And then the next minute, and Vashti, he had his wife killed. Why? Because she wouldn't dance. And at first he wasn't going to have her killed, but because his advisors said, oh, how would it look to other men to see that the king can't control his wife? So it's very silly man, very dangerous man too.
Yeah.
Don't you wonder sometimes, just to go out there, like there may be a purpose that we are here on earth and we don't know it yet because we haven't, you know, got our finest hour yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think about that a lot. I love this idea. I mean, I don't necessarily ascribe to this idea that like God has put me on earth for like a mission. I'm not like that tuned into like God in that way. But I definitely think that we're all here for a reason, or we have something really specific that we can give the world, or that we can offer the world. And
absolutely.
And right, and like how amazing it is. It can be like when you figure out what that might be, but sometimes I feel like I thought I knew what that was, but actually it's not, it's something else. And so maybe it feels different kind of in different stages of life. But yeah, like this piece, I mean, this is one of my favorite kind of arcs, and I have this whole rant that I'm not going to go on right now. But this whole rant about how when we teach kids the Purim story, like how I know when I was learning it, I was taught like such like unsavory things, right? I was taught like, oh, like Esther, she's the best because she won the beauty contest. So like, what does that tell me as a child, right? That like my worth is tied up to my physical looks. Like, I'm not into that. I don't like that. I don't teach kids that, right? I mean, I teach kids the Purim story, but like, right, not, I kind of, whatever. And also with Vashti, right? When I was growing up, Vashti was really villainized. And you're saying like, oh, like Vashti's evil because she didn't follow the king's rules, and like you have to follow all the rules. Like, I don't want to teach my kids that, you know, or teach kids that like you have to listen to the man or else, right? But like Purim can totally be like there's a lot of also good things to learn in Purim. And I think this is this arc is one of those pieces, because it's talking about like having the courage to like be your true self and to say something that's scary and to have that courage, right? And that actually not only is it like having the courage to be yourself, but actually that you can like change the world and you can help other people when you're truly yourself. And I think that's a great lesson to teach to kids and adults and people of all ages. So that's my mini rant for you all. But yeah, so like, but again, this idea of, yeah, the hidden and the revealed, and when are we in a position where we are able to reveal some of ourselves and when maybe we aren't, and all of those pieces. Yes, so, okay, so we're gonna come back to this. I've kind of, yeah, okay, so here, again, like around kind of the hidden and the revealed, I have two fun texts for us. So the first one is from the book Wonder. And yeah, I'd love to have someone, we're going to kind of delve into the hidden and the revealed in terms of costumes.
Can I read them next?
Alan, why don't we give someone else a chance to read, but we can come back to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we are playing hide and seek with ourselves. Excuse me. Would someone like to read? Yes. Oh, you gotta unmute it. You get it?
Do you want me to, should I go ahead?
Yeah, please.
Took that long to read, so I'm unmute myself. Okay, for me, Halloween is the best holiday in the world. It even beats Xmas. I get to dress up in a costume. I get to wear a mask. I get to go around like every other kid with a mask, and nobody thinks I look weird. Nobody takes a second look. Nobody notices me. Nobody knows me. I wish every day could be Halloween. We could all wear masks all the time. Then we could walk around and get to know each other before we got to see what we look like under the mask. That's really
That's so sad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. So this book is about
breaking.
Yeah, so this book is about a child who has kind of like a physical deformity, and so when he wears a mask, he's able to feel like he's like people aren't getting distracted by the way he looks. And so but I think this line, you know, at the end is powerful, right? That then we could walk around and get to know each other before we got to see what we looked like that it would almost kind of provide this openness, right? That that hiding something almost is able to reveal something, right? And so in this case, and I don't know about you all, like when I wear a costume, sometimes I feel like, especially if your face is covered, like I do feel a little bit more freedom because there is kind of, you're able to like embody someone else. I don't know. Does anyone else feel that like when they're in costume? Has anyone worn a costume recently? Has anyone been in costume recently?
No.
Oh, let's do it. Y'all got to dress up.
I don't like wearing costumes. Oh,
yeah, why don't you like wearing costumes?
I don't like wearing costumes. I don't know what it is. So for Purim, when I was teaching, I'm a nursery school teacher, and I had to wear something because the school said you had to. So I dressed up as Mishloach Manot. So I had a big basket, and I'd have like, you know, fruits and different things. But I'm not a costume person, and yet all my kids are, and I wonder why. I wear makeup, that I like to do, dress up, but not wear a costume. And yet, I don't know, isn't that funny? Like, strange.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, sometimes I know like there's messaging that we're told like, oh, costumes are for kids, which I disagree with, but I mean, kids can wear them too.
There's something that I liked.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that,
yeah, I like to give.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a certain, at least for me, like there's a certain freedom, I think, when you get to think about, okay, like I get to step outside of myself for a day and wear something ridiculous. I like to wear, I don't know, the past few Purims I've worn like ridiculous wigs, and I would, you know, some days I wish I could wake up and like dye my hair a wild color, but I think I don't want that for every day. But there's like these pieces that we can express in ourselves when we're wearing costumes. And right, just like here in this text from Wonder, you know, he feels like he's able to express himself because he's hiding something that makes him different. But also maybe in other ways we're able to express things that do make us different when we're in costume. Yes, okay. So here we go. So here we have kind of like related different. So this is from the book If All the Seas Were Ink by Alana Kirshen, where this is a great book if you haven't read it. If you're into like Jewy books, Jewy like modern books, this is a good one. And it goes through, she's like going through the cycle of the Talmud, the Daf Yomi cycle. And like it starts off and she's going through a divorce at the same time, and kind of like it goes along like while she's studying with her life as well. It's a great book. Anyway, Devorah, would you like to continue reading for us?
Okay, each year the happiness at the end of the Purim story is supposed to come as a surprise. The rabbis teach in Tractate Megillah that one of the laws governing the reading of the scroll of Esther
Is there was some TV with you?
Is that the Megillah may not be read backward. The story unfolds in a linear progression, moving from sorrow to joy and from mourning to festivity, as we learn only in the penultimate chapter, Esther 9:22. Of course, since we read the Megillah every Purim, we already know how it will end, with the triumphant hanging of Haman, whose plot to exterminate the Jews was foiled by the beautiful Queen Esther. Brackets beautiful. Even so, we are commanded each year to read the Megillah in order, without jumping backward to read into what already happened, and without jumping forward to imagine what is yet to come. In my own life, though, I am forever doing both.
I don't have thoughts what she's kind of saying, or if you identify with this idea. Or if maybe we want to sum up first what she said, and then we can go on and explore it.
I think what she's saying, the story doesn't allow you to go back and forth, and you're kind of confined in a way to reading it, you know, by rote in a way. Boy, oh boy, all the stuff that comes up on your computer is so distracting. And she's saying real life is much messier than the, you know, real life is a lot more messier than just reading a narrative the same way every year. Yeah. I think that's what she's saying. What do other people think?
Yeah, that's a very good point, Devorah. That in real life, your memories, you can go back and forth. But when I read about in my own life, I know people that before they even start a book, they read the first 40, 50 pages, and then they look at the back. They read the back, which would be absurd to me to know the ending before I read all. Sometimes you read, you skip a few pages or read fast in the middle if it gets too, descriptive or something. But that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think I agree, right? There's this idea of the Purim story. We kind of all know it's going to have a happy ending. I mean, I don't know that I'd necessarily say like killing lots of people, which does happen at the end, like is a happy ending, but it's happy. It's supposed to be happy, right? It's, the Jews are saved. So we know that it's going to end well. And so when we're going through the story, like we know we're going from sadness to happiness and we're getting that happy ending. But yeah, life very much is not always like, we're not always looking towards that happy ending, right? Sometimes it is there and sometimes it's not, and kind of going back and forth. Yes, Stephen.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the plot of the Megillah is so convoluted. I just put that in the chat comment there. It's so convoluted that you really can't even go with what would happen before and predict what's going to happen later. I mean, it's almost an impossible feat, although we know the story. But it reminds me of what we're supposed to do. It means, I mean, what they're saying is that when you read the Megillah, you should be in the moment, right, of where the story is. Correct me if I'm wrong, where the story is, and let the plot flow and the meaning flow as you're going along, even though we know the beginning and end, right? And it reminds me of the Seder, because if you look at the Seder, what does it tell us? That we should put ourselves in the place of our forefathers as if we were redeemed from Egypt, right? So here's a holiday 1 month before that asks us to be in the moment and to imagine where things are at each time and how Hashem is directing the plot. Just like at Pesach, 4 weeks later, we have to put ourselves in a position of the here and now of what's going on in that plot where God redeems us from Egypt, and to feel that we are the ones being redeemed, just as we're supposed to be the ones feeling that we are being saved through this story.
And I like that you brought up Passover, because that's going to come up in a little bit. But yeah, I thank you for bringing that in, this idea of being present in each of those moments. Yeah. And yes, the plot is so convoluted. I feel like every year when I go back through and read it, I always get confused of the order of things, because it's like, I feel like it seems to happen out of order. Like when when Mordecai gets paraded around on the donkey, I think that comes much later. I was like, this shouldn't come here. Like that should have been earlier, but it's there. And yeah, it's definitely a interesting story. But that idea of being present with it. Yeah. And kind of to relate it back to this theme of hidden and revealed, is that like, as we are, I think when we are present with something, it's able to be revealed more, right? Like when we are actually with someone in the moment, and we're speaking with them and we're really listening, that's when we can really, have that deeper conversation than if we're thinking about what we want to say next, or we're thinking about what we're going to have for dinner, or whatever it is. Yeah. Any other kind of thoughts or reactions to this piece?
Hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody talks about it as Purim merrymaking and everything is wonderful, but I think unfortunately, as I got older and really heard the Megillah, at the end, Jews in other areas had to defend themselves because they didn't get the order, and they killed hundreds and hundreds of people were killed. Now, yes, and we don't know how many Jews were hurt. And so as I've gotten into understanding or reading more of the Megillah, it's not that happy an ending. I mean, maybe it is in a way that not every Jew was annihilated, but for Jews to pick up arms and to have to fight, well, I guess you got Israel had to fight. And even then it's tragedy because both sides lose.
Yeah. I know that, going back to me learning Megillah as a kid, I definitely was not taught, what was it, chapter 9, right? Like they just kind of left that off of, right? And for those who maybe haven't seen it yet, check it out. It's not fun, but right, it's just has the Jews, because right, there's this idea that King Ahasuerus couldn't reverse the order that Haman had to kill all the Jews, that instead another edict was issued so that the Jews could arm themselves and defend themselves. Right. And that's what they did. And they were very successful. And so it's, they were successful in that they defeated their enemies, but that meant, killing a lot of people. I forget who I was speaking about this with. I think in another class I was teaching about Purim. Someone called it a revenge fantasy, which I think is probably like more accurate, right? That this is this idea of Jews who are under some kind of subjugation and just having like this fantasy moment of like, what if we could just kill everyone because it was so bad. But yeah, it definitely is, more complicated. There's a lot more gray, right? This isn't a black and white story. It's a very gray story. Yeah, thank you, Dahlia. Okay, any other comments on this that? Okay, cool. it going. So here's just a fun little wordplay thing that was pointed out to me. So right, with this idea again of the revealed and the hidden. If you put those words together, it says healed. But anyway, the revealed and the hidden. So the word Megillah. Megillah here. I was trying to zoom in. It's not letting me zoom in, but okay, you get the idea. Megillah and Legalot, right? There's like this similar sounds, similar roots, and right, it's this idea of revealing. And so over the course of this Megillah, things are revealed, right? And all sorts of things are revealed. It's not just Esther's identity, or it's not just God. I don't know, does anyone else want to think about what are some things that are revealed in the Megillah?
Well, there's also the good Mordecai, who finds out that 2 guards are going to kill the king, and the king is saved. I mean, it's hidden, and yet it's finally exposed.
Yeah. So there's the Mordecai and Mordecai's character definitely. I think King Ahasuerus is revealed as not a good king. Right, the revelation that, when, and this kind of goes what you were saying, Dahlia, around like when Mordecai kind of saved the king's life, and that was hidden from the king, and then when it was revealed, when the king couldn't sleep and he was reading his book of all the things that happened in the day, it was revealed to the king that, oh, like Mordecai did this great thing and saved his life. Stephen, yes.
The other thing that was revealed is that Amalek has not been vanquished. From the time of the Torah through the time of Shaul. Wasn't Shaul supposed to have eliminated Amalek? Wasn't that supposed to be the end of the line? Well, it shows you that they've cropped up in whatever symbolic or real form 3-4 centuries, it must be 5 centuries after Saul, that Amalek still rears its ugly head with the same, plans to annihilate the Jews, whether with arms or with a plot like this.
Yeah. Real things. I just had another one that fell out of my mind, but yeah, so there's a lot of this idea of like things being revealed, secrets being revealed, all of that. And then here we have our word for costume, which is tachposhet, which also is like a similar, the root of lechapes, which is to search for, which is really, I don't know, it's interesting, right? It's like, I don't even know if it doesn't feel hidden, right? What I don't know, like, what do you think? What do you make of this when you're in a costume? What does it mean to have this searching? Who's searching? Or in costume?
Other people are trying to determine who you are if you go to a costume party. So there's that kind of searching.
Yeah, definitely. Like if you show up in like a full face, everything costume, and people are looking for you. Who are you?
Maybe Rabbi Walker?
Yeah.
Maybe having a costume on where you're covering your face and no one knows who you are. You can be more adventuresome or risque than you would be when they say, oh, look at Rabbi Walker. She's a very, demure type of person, but being hidden underneath, I don't know, a gorilla outfit or whatever you choose, you can do silly things, jump up and down on the table or something. So it could be an adventuresome experiment type of thing. Who knows,
Yeah, it's kind of like searching for yourself a little bit. Kind of that goes back to the text from Wonder about how he's able to like.
Yeah, or allowing yourself to be really silly and have fun.
Yeah.
I think we're way off topic here, but that's okay.
No, I don't think it is off topic. I think it's related. Yeah, Stephen.
I just think if you go as a gorilla, you can say you're a Megillah gorilla.
Yeah, very good, Stephen. Good.
Very good. There you go. That can be, someone can take that. steal that costume idea. Yeah. Yeah, there's lots of fun. I keep saying this. I think I said this last week too, but there's like a lot of potential for Zoom costumes because you have a whole box to work with, which is kind of fun. So think about it. Yeah, but yeah, I think right, this idea of costume and to search for, right, it could be the people looking at you are searching, but it could be you also yourself are searching, and maybe it's allowing us to explore a part of our personality that we hadn't previously explored. Or yeah, my favorite thing that happened with a Purim costume is one year I wore this like really short wig, and I liked it so much that I like actually cut my hair to look like it. But I was like, I guess it helps me find a hairstyle that I no longer have. But but I think it's also beyond just the superficial, right? There maybe are aspects of our personality. My rabbi in Los Angeles, Rabbi Sharon Brous, would always talk about how Purim was this time to kind of explore our shadow selves that were there, but we didn't always bring to light. And so I think it's like a fun opportunity to think about that. And yeah, and maybe this is a year, like we're all stuck at home, so maybe this is a year to like really have fun and like explore what it would be like to wear a costume. And you don't have to, we're not going to parties, so no one's really going to see you. So if you're like too embarrassed, like that's fine, right? This is your year. This is your year. So you still have what, 2 weeks? You still have 10 days. You have 10 days to think about if you want to. Right?
My costume is gonna be my pajamas.
Okay, or you could do that. Yeah.
Aren't you incognito? You can look out on everybody else, but you are safe within yourself by being covered or having a mask. Not the mask we're wearing now. I'm talking about a poor mask. You are yourself looking out at other people and like, viewing how other people and their acceptance of you and you of them by being covered so that they don't see the true you. You're a different person on that particular time, depending on how you want to behave. But you can be incognito, you can be inward and still be outward, seeing what other people are doing and what they're like.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Good,
like
good.
A level of protection in a way. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like there's so many layers to costumes and to dressing up and all of that. And I think in some ways, and I don't want to like go down this rabbit hole necessarily, but I feel like in some ways there are some similarities with like the masks that, our face masks that we have to wear, because it does kind of, right, like there are times where I will go to the store when I look disgusting because I'm like, no one's gonna recognize me because my face is covered. Where I wouldn't usually do that because like I'll run into some of you and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm a mess. But now I'm like, oh, it's okay. Right, and I think that's like a similar piece of like when our identity is hidden, or something about us has changed. I don't know. Does anyone else do that or have those experiences?
That's what they were saying last night, because you know how there was so much last year about with the Muslims wearing head coverings that covered their faces like this, and now everybody's wearing their faces like that, so nobody can complain about them.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
right?
Doesn't matter if it's a mask or if it's a burqa, like, yeah, we all are covering your faces now. Yeah. Definitely have, sometimes it's hard because I don't recognize people, but sometimes it's, to our advantage to not be recognized. So there's kind of a both. Both is definitely happening. Okay, so now, Stephen, I know earlier you mentioned you had a connection between Purim and Passover, what you were alluding to, and so we're going to look a little bit different but similar, so we're going to bring up Passover. So here, this is a little nugget from Ta'anit, 29a, from the Talmud, from the Babylonian Talmud, and it says, these were the days of miracles for the Jews, Purim and Passover. And there's, a lot of discussion about, okay, why are these things? And there's a whole discussion around when Purim is going to be and how it should be connected with Passover, because they're both these times of miracles and whatever. And I really enjoyed. I wouldn't usually bring someone like this into our classes, but here we have today. We were learning from an old Haredi rabbi, but I just thought it was so interesting thinking about the differences between the miracles of Purim and Passover, and kind of how it relates to our own lives. So would someone like to read Rabbi Shimshon Pincus on Purim?
Okay, I can read it.
Yes, Madeline, thank you.
This is also the reason for which none of the names of God are mentioned in Megillat Esther. Since if God's name would be written explicitly, this would constitute a departure from the natural into the supernatural, which is applicable to Passover. Purim, however, reveals that each aspect within nature is imbued with the love of God. Where does one find more intense love, in Passover or in Purim? On Passover, God raised us over the entire world. But on Purim, we discovered God in every nook and cranny of the natural world. Sometimes the miracles in life are big and open. Sometimes they're hidden and concealed. But Purim and Pesach are beside each other because they are both essential miracles.
Thank you, Madeline. So I like this point. I thought it was so interesting how he connected this idea that God isn't mentioned because we don't want to say, oh, this was all because of God, right? Like this was all God's plan or God did this for us. It's saying, no, actually we did this. And it was kind of a miracle brought on by people, and courage of people. And he connects it with this idea that we're all imbued with the love of God, which is great. I think that's lovely. If you're not so into the God language, I think it still works. This idea that kind of we all have a godliness within us, or we all have kind of this sense within us that we can really connect to and help make miracles. And so, right, so kind of so juxtaposes that with Passover, where Passover is very much supernatural, right? Like we had nothing to do with it. God brought the plagues and, we just had to kind of walk fast. And we did that reluctantly as well, right? It was like we were being pushed. Whereas with Purim, it was really coming from the people. Right, and then I'm going to just reread this last line because I like it, and then I'd love to hear thoughts. Sometimes the miracles of life are big and open. Sometimes they're hidden and concealed. Both Purim and Pesach are beside each other because they are both essential miracles. Yeah, what do you make of this? Do you agree with Rabbi Shimshon? Are you feeling him? Are you not feeling him? Yeah, Stephen.
I just have a bit of a disagreement with him, because I think that this Megillah, the story is just too. It's too convoluted. Like we talked about, it's just too convoluted and unpredictable in that to be something natural that naturally happens. There's too many. There's somebody steering the plot of this thing, like we say, being in the moment, to not predict what's coming and what's going behind. And I think that there is a supernatural characteristic to Purim. I believe that more and more. And I don't know if you're, if you agree with a statement. There's a statement from the Midrash about Esther, that when the text says the word melech, but not specifically Achashverosh, that it's actually referring to God. So he's not listed as the Tetragrammaton, the Yud Kei Vav Kei, but that the word melech, when it appears in certain context, is actually God explicitly. And I mean, one of the examples, and I brought it up in one of my talks, was that near the end, when she, after the 10 sons of Haman are killed off, Esther in the next sentence says to the Melech, not Melech Achashverosh, she says to the Melech that I hope that oh, there you are, that I hope that you will grant, that you will have a victory over the 10 men. I can't remember exactly. I can look up the thing, but it says, that she pleads with the king to have the 10 sons hung. That's 2 sentences after they were already hung. We have the 10 names that you beautifully did last year at Purim, all the 10 sons listed very quickly, but those sons have already died. And now she's asking Hamelech to go ahead. So, I mean, it's one example that the Midrash says is really not Achashverosh, that she's pleading with Hashem for a future time. What that is, I go into in the talk, but it's just the aspect that Melech is actually the name of God, and several places along in the text, it may not be Achashverosh that's being addressed. I don't know, is that something that you agree with? Or?
I mean, I've definitely encountered that, and I think that's a valid interpretation. I like the idea that actually, like, Melech we're talking about King Achashverosh, and right, I think that there's like this, I can feel this discomfort of like the rabbis saying, like, how could we have this holy text where God is like not named? Like, we have to find the name. And I kind of relate that to this. But I mean, I think, right, it's like a both and. It's not an either or. It's a both and. And I think both ways we can kind of like learn.
Rabbi, it's the same argument that the name of, in the story of Exodus, which in the Torah is Moses par excellence doing his thing, Moses' name never appears in the Haggadah either. And yet it does cryptically, because when he does the Muftim, Hashem is talking directly to him, even though it's not in name. But it says, you show him these signs. And we infer that that is Moses in the text. Same thing here. You know that God is somewhere behind manipulating the marionettes, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, like in both of these, that either, God is present in some way in the Purim story, and Moses is present in some way in the Passover story, but not explicitly named. And I think that that's like, I think that makes it more interesting in a way. And I mean, I think there are lots of reasons why Moses isn't in the Haggadah, why God isn't here. But I think that, just like,
could it be?
Keeps it interesting. Yeah, Sharon. Yeah.
I was thinking about Purim. Is that God empowered, and I'm going to use the word empowered. It's a modern day word, but we'll use it. Empowered Esther to do what she did. So I do believe that God is there. He's just not showing his face, but he's within there. Where Mordecai was a strong man anyway. Mordecai was always a strong man. But Mordecai was, we didn't have to empower Mordecai. He was going to do the right thing, and he was an honorable man there. And Esther was very hesitant, right? Like you said, it's safety within there. But she got empowered, knowing that maybe this is the reason why I'm put on earth, I thought in the Haggadah, maybe I'm not thinking, isn't Moses the one that put the water and with his staff and the seas opened up and all that?
Yeah.
So God plays a very big part there.
But it doesn't say that.
Yeah, well, yeah, it doesn't say it explicitly. I don't want to get into a Haggadah discussion right now. We can do that. We can do that next month. I'll do a Passover series. It'll be great. But yeah, I mean, I think that this is almost like a theological discussion, right? Like, where do we fall in terms of like, where is God present? Where is God empowering who? I mean, I think that my girl Esther, like, she did it on her own. She got the courage on her own. But if you want to say, God was helping her, great. And I think in our own lives, I feel like, some of us might feel more kind of in touch with God in the everyday, and some of us might not. And I think that, the Purim story is almost like a Rorschach test for that. It can be like, where are we seeing God or not?
You really think like you wake up one morning and say, oh, I'm empowered?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's a building up. I think it's a building up, like it's layer after layer after layer, and then you become who you are.
But I think Esther was like having a lot of growth throughout the time. It wasn't just like one day she woke up, but
I have a question.
Mordecai.
Hold on, wait, sorry. Lorraine, yes.
Yeah. Forget though that Mordecai was presenting her an alternative that if you do nothing, all these bad things are going to happen to you. So we can say that she was enlightened, empowered, she also might have chosen what she thought was the best choice. It might not have been just nobleness.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are lots of ways, right? Just like anyone, there are lots of ways to read Esther. Totally. And that's totally a valid one. Okay. I know we're getting towards the end. I have like one more text that I love that I want to show you. It's our like little bonus, and then we can go back. But yeah, I love this. And I love that there's just, so much to discuss around Purim, and theology and God and everything. Okay. Here. Oh, sorry, I gotta move my screen. Okay, we got our bonus material. Hold on, I'm just gonna make it so it's on one page. Okay, so this is Dr. Penina Feller, and it is in this book called Masking and Unmasking Ourselves, Interpreting Biblical Texts on Clothing and Identity. Ooh, okay. Okay. Here, I'll read. It's like bedtime story time, because I know it's getting late. It's like almost 9. So here you go. Here's your bedtime story. Purim invites us to set aside a time in which we completely reverse our wardrobe, which in turn reverses our identity. It is an invitation to cross and reverse all the other dichotomies and uniforms of our lives as well. On Purim, we are using clothes against themselves, to deny their power to box us in, and simultaneously to redeem us from needing redemption. Purim makes us wonder if there is an authentic self at all, or whether it's just endless masks upon masks. On the surface, it seems that Purim involves an escape from reality. Purim provides us with the hope that the garments we put on that seem only to mask our present realities can reveal the deep-seated consciousness of our potential for change, our ability to bring happiness and fulfillment to our lives. We may ask, what lies beneath a story that intimates the absence of God and meaning and the holiday of Purim, which is about frivolity and play? Underneath the garment of the story is perhaps a glimpse of the existence of a force in the universe that can help us move beyond who we are and what our lives presently are, and enable us to become what we aspire to be.
Whoa.
I know it's deep for a 5 to 9, but I just really loved that, and so I wanted to bring that in.
That's one heck of a bedtime story.
Not a good bedtime story.
But Rabbi Walker, I have a question.
Yeah.
The way we, this is really all really interesting. I think it's really interesting. But I wonder when we did, the Jewish people or the Hebrews or whatever you want to call us, when we did take on this aspect of dressing up and costumes and masks. Because I don't know why, but I keep thinking of it. I don't know, like in the year 500 of the Common Era, I don't know if people were doing that in their communities. I somehow have this feeling, and I'm not historical, and maybe Stephen would know that, but I wonder if it's adopted from other cultures, which would even put an interesting extra layer on top of it, that those kind of traditions from other cultures, or even from the Italian,
masquerades.
I'd just be curious to know the history of mask and costume in Purim, because I'm going to ask, is it written in the Purim story that we should get dressed up and do all these things, or have these become customs?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for bringing that in. I think it's like a both and in some ways. So I would say, even though in the Purim story it doesn't say, okay, we're going to get dressed up in costumes now, it talks about having a festive meal and all of those things. But there are, I think, like, in a way, like costumes in the book, right? Like all of the royal garments, I think. And like when Mordecai is given like King Ahasuerus's robes to be paraded around town. I think in some ways, like, that's a costume that actually reveals something that's going to happen later when Mordecai gets to be number 2 in the kingdom. But yeah, I I just did a quick Google search on my phone. So thanks to the internet, because I'm not a good history buff either. And it says that this is according to Wikipedia. So again, this is like a very cursory answer, but it says that it probably originated among Italian Jews at the end of the 15th century, probably influenced by the Roman Carnival. So
that's right. I say Carnival.
Yeah.
Carnival.
Yeah. So
yeah.
That would have been around the same time in the calendar.
Yes, isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Because,
I mean, I think a lot of Jewish traditions, right? We like some types of things like come in from other cultures and then we make them their own. And like that's something we've been doing forever. But yeah, it's a good point. But I think that the costumes, and I think that partially why they've like been adopted and we've kept them, is that it does really like fit in well with the themes of like hidden reveals, but also the sense of like revelry and celebration.
Maybe I was just thinking of something too.
Yeah.
Maybe when the Jews walked home at night, in costume, maybe they felt safer that night.
I was gonna bring that up too with anti-Semitism. It was a way of celebrating Purim by fitting in with the way the townspeople looked.
Although probably people, I mean now, right? If you're walking home from a Purim celebration in a costume, people are gonna know you're Jewish because no one else is wearing costumes right now.
Before
yes, they are. It's Carnival.
Yeah.
Before you leave, I must bring up a point. I was a little bit late. I had a meeting, but I'm in the middle of reading a book called The Book of Thee. I think it's for Vashti, but anyway, there's 3 women. It's a fictionalized account, and one of them is the story of Esther, and it isn't anything like you've talked about tonight. It is very, very, it's the story of Esther, yes. She's in the harem right now, but the way it's portrayed is not as nice as the way we're talking about it at the moment. I have to wait to see how the story ends, but anyway, it's really different if anybody wants to read it. It's by Anna Solomon, and there's 3 women, and one of them is actually Esther.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways to tell this story and every story, and I love the imagination and all of that. I just want to reread, and then I'll end because it's 9. But just reread this last piece to kind of have this like sending off this thought as we start to approach Purim. This idea, here we go. Underneath the garment of the story is perhaps a glimpse of the existence of a force in the universe that can help us move beyond who we are and what our lives presently are, and enable us to become who we aspire to be. So just some final words there to kind of think about and mull over. This Purim is right, like how can we use this holiday and this time to think about what are ways that we are who we are and we want to be something different, or who are we aspiring to be, and how can we take a little step during this season to get there. Cool. Well, thank you all for joining, and I won't hold you up.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rabbi Walker.
Bye, everybody. Have a good week.
Bye.